Woke activists panic as Coors beer cancels DEI. From Pink News, Coors slammed for ghosting the community after becoming latest brand to drop DEI initiatives. And the HRC is losing their minds over this. They have no control. One company after another is canceling their relationship with the Human Rights Campaign. From LGBT Nation, abandoning LGBT diversity hurts the bottom line, according to a new HRC survey. So they create their own, let's face it, fake survey with their own skewed results to try to push their agenda. It's going to take a lot more than a survey to save this organization. And from Ad Age, Molson Coors joins Ford, Lowe's, and others in diversity retreat. This is how they're trying to save their agenda. They put an article like this out in Bloomberg. DEI hires don't lower the bar, we raise it. The opposite of diversity isn't meritocracy, but homogeneity. Well, then what would be the opposite of meritocracy? Allowing people in, not based on their merit. I can't say I agree with you. Coors Beer has become the latest brand to drop its diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. Molson Coors Brewing Company reportedly announced in an internal memo that it had been restructuring its corporate training program since March. Sometimes they do it to discuss regulatory changes. Sometimes it's actually something that's business related, something you need to know to actually do your job. But not in this case. Coors, which had a checkered history with the queer community before merging with Canadian brewers Molson in 2005, added that it would be doing away with its DEI initiatives and diversity quotas because of the complicated rise of anti-LGBT rhetoric. None of the rhetoric is anti-LGBT. It just does not belong in the workplace. Training for social acceptance of LGBT people or people of different skin colors or different religions has nothing to do with the workplace. When you're at the workplace, you do your job. That's it. Instead, Coors is going to focus on rebranding employee resource groups as business resource groups in response to factors outside the company's control, according to the executives. Quote, we are ensuring our incentives are tied to business performance and do not include aspirational representation goals beginning next year. It is a business's responsibility to provide an opportunity for investors, their customers, and their employees, not to push social political agendas. And this correction is long overdue. US-based human rights groups that push these kinds of political social agendas universally panned the decision, including GLAAD, which shamed Molson Coors for deciding to walk away from supporting marginalized groups when it gets noisy and hard. GLAAD President and Chief Executive Sarah Kate Ellis said, quote, Coors is throwing away decades of effort to regain the trust of LGBT and ally employees and consumers. Corporate responsibility demands a laser focus on the reality that our world is already more diverse and inclusive. No, corporate responsibility is to its customers and its employees and its investors, delivering what it promises to the marketplace. There is no promise to help push a political agenda. Quote, thriving businesses always invite more people to belong and be respected in every move they make. Well, that's not correct, and this is not someone who speaks on behalf of any business expertise. It's not somebody on the board of directors. It's not an investor. It's not a customer. It's not an employee. This is someone who wants to take control of the business and utilize its resources to push her social and political agenda. Journalist Erin Reed also chimed in, sharing an infographic created by Coors last year to trumpet its commitment to the LGBT community and writing, quote, Coors ends DEI and LGBT initiatives. Remember a year ago when they posted this? So often, when companies who claim to be allies get an ounce of what LGBT people get every day, they ghost the community. And that's worse than never even supporting at all. So that's the message. Don't get involved in this nonsense at all. Keep your business focused on business, focused on customers. Take care of your employees, but don't get involved in your employees' personal lives. That's not up to you as a business. Coors Molson's move follows similar steps by a string of American businesses that have chosen to roll back their commitment to DEI initiatives, including home improvement retail chain Lowe's, Ford Motors, and whiskey makers Brown-Forman Corporation, who own Jack Daniels, and of course Harley-Davidson, Tractor Supply, and others. The anti-DEI backlash has been spearheaded by a right-wing activist named Robbie Starbuck. Starbucks, who directed the controversial gender-critical anti-LGBT documentary The War on Children, took to Twitter in June to call out Tractor Supply for their DEI initiatives, including having Pride Month decorations in their office. Not everybody is involved in Pride Month. Not everybody should be mandated to be involved in Pride Month. Whoever wants to be involved, that's fantastic for you. Not everyone wants to be, and not everybody is comfortable with having to engage in it at work. Let people do what they want to do personally. Don't force it into people's social workplaces. The impact was significant, with scores of people threatening to boycott Tractor Supply. Clearly buoyed by his success, Starbucks has since gone on to target several other companies in a similar fashion. Data collected by the Human Rights Campaign, which is now desperate to try to save itself. The Human Rights Campaign is losing all of its influence. They've had kind of a lock on major companies. Companies were providing employment information to them, letting essentially the Human Rights Campaign people set all of their policies in regards to LGBT people and what benefits they offered employees. This is completely inappropriate. They don't need some outside entity telling them how to operate their business. They can listen to their employees. They don't need outside people rating them and controlling them. And the Human Rights Campaign people are losing this control as one company after another says they're no longer sharing data with the Human Rights Campaign. So the Human Rights Campaign did their own, I consider it a fake survey. That's just my opinion. I haven't looked at their methodology. Any company or organization that sponsors a survey that they pay for, obviously they wouldn't put out the survey if they weren't pushing out an agenda along with that survey. I don't trust it. None of the companies should trust it, but here they are just trying to push it. According to the HRC's latest LGBT climate survey, not climate as in is it too hot out or too cold out, climate as in the LGBT vibe climate. More than 80% of queer adults would boycott a company that reversed DEI initiatives, while 75% said they would have a less favorable opinion of the brand. Well, we do have the recent situation with Dylan Mulvaney, and Dylan Mulvaney did get a lot of support from the Human Rights Campaign and GLAAD and other outside people and groups. Didn't make a damn difference. Customers weren't interested in supporting that. Customers were interested in supporting what they wanted to support, with being associated with things that they were comfortable being associated with. And the people trying to push an agenda, all of this fake AstroTurf stuff, were unsuccessful in controlling Bud Light. I did more than 100 Bud Light videos. I was pretty big on the subject. The attempts to try to get LGBT people to boycott Bud Light and Anheuser-Busch products completely fell flat. HRC Senior Vice President for Programs, Research and Training, Orlando Gonzalez, said that continued attacks on DEI campaigns are short-sighted and make workplaces feel less safe and less inclusive. No, they don't, and no, they don't. You can't push your agenda at work. You can push it at home. You can push it with your friends. You can push it in your social circles. You can have parades. You can do whatever you want to do, but you can't force people into an environment that just to earn a living, they need to participate in your social and political agendas. This is still a free country. Yet their survey conveniently backed up his claim. 72% of the participants said they would feel less included or accepted at work, and more than one-third believed their productivity would suffer as a result. Productivity at these companies that are dropping these divisive, incoherent, inappropriate trainings, policies, and sponsoring of events is going to go up dramatically. These companies will actually and literally make a lot more money just focusing on business and not trying to create drama between employees with issues that have nothing to do with getting your work done. Several companies that have cut DEI initiatives have also dropped their commitments to the HRC's Corporate Equality Index, which measures a firm's inclusivity according to the HRC people, allowing this lady to tell you how you should basically run your business. If that sounds impractical, it is impractical, and that's why it's getting dropped. The companies who drop this kind of thing have obviously been looking for an excuse to get away from this kind of agenda. More than 93% of those surveyed said a perfect score of the HRC CEI index number would indicate a commitment to LGBT rights, and a similar number would see a company that donates to LGBT causes in a good light. I don't disagree with this one. If you ask people, do you think these people are serving an LGBT agenda if they submit themselves to this woman to judge your company if it's LGBT enough? Sure, yeah, it would indicate that they do support their agenda. That really doesn't tell you anything. And lastly, and most ridiculously, they claim that Americans are twice as likely to buy and use brands that support LGBT rights, according to GLAAD's research. Whether or not consumers would support a company that followed this political agenda or that ideological agenda doesn't make a difference. You can't discriminate against employees. You can't treat people differently based on their gender or their sexual preferences. Employees have to be treated equally. And they need to be given opportunity based on merit. And speaking of merit, if you're still hung up on getting things done and having them done properly, this might cure you. From Bloomberg, DEI hires don't lower the bar, we raise it. The opposite of diversity isn't meritocracy, but homogeneity, meaning everything being the same. And in organizations where everyone looks the same, standards tend to be lower. Now, I'd like to see the data about if people look this way, standards are high. If people look that way, standards are low. There is no such data. It doesn't matter what you look like or who you're sexually attracted to. It matters the job that you do when you're doing your work. Yet these people do get their own opinion column in Bloomberg. Quote, DEI hire is a new version of an old insult. For the past 50 years, the term affirmative action hire hurled the same accusations of ineptitude. Affirmative action was a policy that companies had to follow where they had to hire people of certain specific skin color because it was required by law. So it wasn't a matter of judging people equally based on merit. It was a matter of, look, we need to get more people of this specific skin color into the workplace. So yes, they were hired on a different standard. I'm not criticizing, I'm not qualifying one way or the other. It's just that that's what it was objectively. She continues, then and now, the goal is to imply that a person is incompetent, even illegitimate, whether they are the Vice President of the United States, the head of the Secret Service, a hypothetical airline pilot, a Supreme Court justice, a mayor, or a college president. The games that these people play. You remember this? From the New York Post. Boeing prioritizing diversity and inclusion over flyer safety, according to Elon Musk, after a near-catastrophic Alaska Airlines mishap. This was an accident that was waiting to happen. Didn't happen yet, because the company isn't focused on merit. They're flying people around in their planes that they make. They're sending people into space who are getting trapped in space. Elon Musk himself has to go save those people in space. But the people that write these articles don't care about whether or not people are safe. They care about whether or not their agenda is getting pushed and if they personally get more power. You would think at the point where people are getting trapped in space because Boeing is being run so incompetently with the wrong kind of focus, that would be enough to maybe make them rethink what they're doing. Maybe if it's one of their children that get trapped in space or become a victim somehow of this meritless agenda, they might change their minds. Although that would be pushing conservative people's values or normal people's values on other people who don't seem to have that kind of humanistic agenda. It's all about power for these people. She continues, a DEI hire didn't earn it. Yes, that's correct. The usual response is to get defensive, insisting that the person's credentials are impeccable and downplaying their race or gender. But race and gender are not superficial characteristics that can or should be stripped away in order to prove someone's merit. No, gender has nothing to do with merit. What you're capable of doing, what your credentials are, speak to what your merit is in competition with other people that actually do have merit. And it's not skin color. It's about what you do when you get into the game, when you do the actual work. She continues, and the reality is that, more often than not, such hires don't lower the bar, they raise it. So maybe we should insist that DEI hire is a compliment, even if that's not how it's intended. The term DEI hire is not a compliment, it's not an insult, it's a statement of fact if you got into a job because of your race, your skin color, or your sexual preference. DEI opponents insist that underrepresented or marginalized groups have cheated the hiring process or skipped the line in order to advance. But there's no evidence that's true, except all of their policies and everything they claim that they're entitled to do, that they're not entitled to do. To be clear, the opposite of diversity is not meritocracy, it's homogeneity. No, it's not, because there are people that have merit of every kind of skin color, every kind of race, every kind of sexual preference, and national origin. And homogeneity, not diversity, is what tends to lower the bar. Homogeneity allows employers to remain too comfortable with the status quo and let workers succumb to groupthink and other decision-making traps. Now, when you're working at a company, you have to get along with the people that you're working with, at least in a professional way. You don't have to go out with them socially or create deep friendships. You have to be able to collaborate together. Different languages, different cultures, different backgrounds, it actually doesn't help people to collaborate well. All of that actually creates friction with people cooperating. So to say that diversity of background and diversity of skill set is something that helps is not actually true. Sometimes a child will even come up with a great suggestion because they have a child's mind. They think from a different perspective, but that doesn't give them a skill set. You have to take that suggestion metaphorically and then incorporate it in within a skill set, within an expertise to make that useful. It's literally a translation of that point of view to a specific business case. But in homogeneous companies, white leaders tend to be evaluated by less rigorous standards. They're seen more favorably when they succeed and penalized less harshly when they fail. I mean, there's no data for this. This is just racist nonsense. Black employees tend to have more fairness concerns and be more skeptical about whether their organizations will act honestly and ethically. I don't know. Who knows? There's no citation for any data. This is just off some lady's head. Diversity, whether race, politics, or gender, has been found to enhance group problem solving and decision making. Racially diverse juries deliberate more thoughtfully. Okay, a jury has nothing to do with a business environment. Even if that was true and it was intelligent and it was correct and there was a citation for that data, it's a different dynamic. If we were to go and play softball, we may want to have a certain makeup of that team. We may look for a certain composition of people who were experienced playing softball, maybe some people that had experience playing baseball before, maybe not. A softball team, a jury in a legal case, is not the same as a work environment. And yet, she continues, politically diverse debate teams prepare more diligently. Do they really? Do you really have data that politically diverse debate teams prepare more diligently? Mixed gender teams of scientists are more likely to produce breakthroughs because you could go back in time and you could research all of the scientific breakthroughs that came through racially diverse teams versus teams that weren't racially diverse, which for the most part is, this just goes on to complete silliness. There's no citations for this, but I am having some fun with it. Exposure to people from different backgrounds leads teammates to pause, question their assumptions, and explore better ways to proceed. This has a measurable impact on outcomes and has been shown to improve on-the-job learning, innovation, and even safety. But there are no citations for this whatsoever, and of course it's not true. Diligence has nothing to do with skin color. Intelligence has nothing to do with skin color. Experience has nothing to do with race, gender, or sexual preference. And dedication to your job is also not something that's related to gender. Inclusion matters too. There are decades of studies showing that when employees feel more included, they contribute more of themselves and their ideas. Workers of all backgrounds are more committed to teams and organizations that they believe operate fairly. And when organizations actively seek to reduce bias in hiring and promotion, it results in a more level playing field for everyone. And yet there's another reason DEI tends to raise the bar. Leaders from historically underrepresented and excluded backgrounds must jump over hurdles of bias. Okay, not when you're a diversity hire though, right? Because you get a job that you didn't earn. You get it not based on merit. You get it because there's a certain quota that they have to fill. So maybe you weren't actually specifically qualified for that. Though she continues, these obstacles get a lot of attention from scholars like her. She's a scholar, but she has no citations. And the evidence on racial and gender bias is robust and consistent, though I won't provide it here. You could provide it here, she's not going to. But it can also be dispiriting. But there's a positive spin to put on it too. Those who do get ahead often possess extraordinary qualifications. Anyone can play games with statistics and with data. Anyone can make wild claims and then not list citations, like in that Bloomberg article. If you go into a work environment, if you go into a professional environment, you ought to know that you're going to be judged based on what you bring to the job, without excuses, without explanations, without special privileges. Just do the work, earn your promotions, move up in the company, execute on your career, and if you don't get opportunities there, go bring your skill set and your passion to another company. To ask for all of these absurd additional opportunities, to not have to earn the opportunities just based on skin color or some kind of sexual preference, is completely inappropriate. And even though there was a trend for this, there was a fad for this, it's fastly disappearing. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.